Okay, Mayor Rachel L. Smith, we are ready for you whenever you are.
All right. Thank you, everybody. That was our Snapple bottle calling this meeting to order. As you can tell, this is our first meeting in this new facility. It's a little chaotic, but it's a lot of fun. So I'm going to open this as the City Commission regular meeting. Today is July 21st, 2021. And our agenda says we're going to do the flag salute. We're going to do the roll call first, and then we're going to do flag salute. Ms. Riggs.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Present.
Commissioner Adam Marl is absent this evening, and Mayor Rachel L. Smith.
Here.
But he's excused, though.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so first item is the flag salute. Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I will say it's been about 9 months since we've done that in person, and it feels really good to be saying the flag salute again for our meetings. All right, our first item up is ceremonies and proclamations, and we have the oath of office of new Oregon City police officers. So this is a very exciting event, and we have a full crowd for our opening meeting in this building. Mr. Chief Band, will you please kick this off?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and Commission, and welcome to everybody here, and thank you. It is, if you don't know, this is the first time that we've had anybody here in this new room, and we're pretty excited to have all of you as friends and family here supporting our officers who are getting sworn in. I do want to say it has become more evident to me, and I think everyone in this community, as the longer I've done this job and sort of with everything that's gone on over a number of years, the family and friends of police officers are also signing on for the commitment to keep communities safe. Everything that our officers go through, mothers, daughters, sons, wives, husbands, they're all a part of that same dedication to keeping a community safe. And we recognize that, and thank you for committing to that and supporting the people who you have working here for us. I'm going to first introduce, we do have one four-legged officer who you probably hear whining, and that's Ronnie. And Ronnie's a 2-year-old shepherd that Officer Farmer has, probably the only one in this room who was born in Czechoslovakia. And he's 2 years old, is that right? And Officer Farmer's wife, Miranda, and then daughters, Vidal and Violet, are here. And so he's a new member of our department who's been on the road for how long? Since November. Okay. Okay, now to the two-legged officers. And when I say your name, you can just come forward and stay forward. So William Guthridge is also, as far as I know, has your wife's parents are here, Andrew and Lonnie Clark, your father, Bill Guthridge, mother, Lisa Guthridge, wife, Malia Guthridge, and daughter, Kaylee, is also here. They live in Sandy, and they were married in Oregon City. I had to ask Cookie what his first name was, and it's Araya. Cookie Araya came to us from OHSU, where he was an officer for a couple years. He grew up and graduated from Westland High School in 2015, and in attendance are his mother, Teresa, girlfriend Haley, and best friends Mike and Brennan. Walter Harper came to us, was an officer in Gresham. His wife Allison and daughter Hayden are here. They live in Oregon City and is from Ventura, California. And the last with the longest list is Officer Matt Husbeck, who... Okay. So Matt came to us from the city of Portland, started his career there in 2009, and here with him are his wife, Deborah, his daughters, Abigail and Adelaide. I thought I saw them. Okay. Mom Trish, Dad Tom, father-in-law Alan, mother-in-law Carol, brother-in-law Jason, sister-in-law Kelly, nephew Uriah, friends Dave and Liz McCarthy with their 3 boys, Jeremiah, Andrew. Okay, they're not there. And Portland Police Bureau Sergeant Steve Andrusko, who told me that he regretfully saw Matt coming over to this police department. So everybody's on the street, out of the academy, out of training, and serving your community, and the mayor's now going to swear each of you in. Thank you.
For the dog.
I was going to say, you can face the audience a little bit if you want. They want to be able to see you. All right, can you hear me? Is this mic working? Okay. All right, so please raise your right hand and then repeat after me. I, and state your name.
I, Walter Archer,
Do solemnly swear that I will uphold the law,
solemnly swear that I will uphold the law,
support the Constitution of the United States
support the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Oregon.
and the state of Oregon.
I will abide by the law enforcement code of ethics
I will abide by the law enforcement code of ethics
and the department's rules and regulations
and the department's rules and regulations,
while faithfully performing my duties
while faithfully performing my duties
as a police officer for Oregon City, Oregon.
as a police officer for Oregon City, Oregon.
Congratulations. I think we're going to take a moment for some pictures.
Do you guys want to do a photo op with a family member? Do you want to do it up here? Do you want to do it up front? Okay.
What you guys think about that?
Thank you very much. But do you want them there?
We won't.
Let's do one photo from there. Or all of you. Whatever you want. And the chief.
We should probably get out of the picture.
We'll just peek over.
Frank's photogenic.
3, 2, 1.
One of them want to turn out okay.
3, 2, 1.
So you want to pause for your family by Monday if not doing?
Yep.
Family photos. I see all the cameras. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Be safe out there. Hill Street Blues, that's right, yes. That dog is absolutely gorgeous.
They'd have gotten you by now.
I went up there, I was like, you know the dog is stealing the show, right?
Yep.
And the officer says, yeah. He was like, it's okay. He was like, it's okay.
There we go. All right.
So it was great.
Tom's coming.
All right.
Better check the doors.
I might need binoculars. I can barely see you.
Do you know who's coming?
All right. So we're letting the room clear out. And
when he gets here.
when who gets here? All right. That was fun. That was probably one of the best parts about being on the city commission and being a mayor. So welcoming new Oregon City police officers. We love our police department. Our community loves our police department. And great job. Thank you. All right. So our next, I should mention 3B. I did make a mayoral appointment of Hunter Pico to the CIC, Citizen Involvement Committee, as the second representative for the Hillendale Neighborhood Association. All right, and now with that, we'll move on to citizen comments. Ms. Riggs, do we have any?
We do not have any citizen comment, thank you.
All right. Kind of unprecedented. All right, we have no presentations, so we're on to the adoption of the agenda and the review of the consent agenda. Anybody want to pull anything from the consent agenda?
I do not. I'd like to move that if we don't have anything to pull, that we adopt the consent agenda as written.
Hold on, I'm trying to get it. I don't think I have anything. No, I don't see anything. We're good. So do you want to, is that a motion?
Yes.
Second?
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Ms. Riggs?
Yes, Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Mayor Rachel Lala Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, so now we are up on the set of public hearings. Our first public hearing is the first and second reading of an ordinance amending the Oregon City Municipal Code regarding geohazard overlay districts and declaring an emergency. Ms. Christina Robertson Gardner, are you kicking this item off?
Thank you, Mayor Lala Smith, Commissioners. Just to recap, this is the third package of the Public Works Code amendments. This topic, geohazard overlay district, was presented to you at the May 24th City Commission work session and the July 13th City Commission work session. At the July 13th City Commission work session, the City Commission directed staff to return this evening with an ordinance for a first and second reading, as well as having the ordinance be effective this evening. So staff has presented a package for you. I'd like to enter into the record a public comment from Christine Kaczynski that was sent to us, and I want to make sure that it has been passed on to this City Commission.
Yes, the commission received that
great.
email to them last
Sure,
night.
the record is open until the vote happens, so I want to make sure that that comment gets put into the record. And Josh Wheeler, Assistant City Engineer, is available via Zoom, I believe, if you have any specific questions.
I did not have a chance to read the letter. I saw it, but I also saw the email from Ms. Riggs saying be here at 5 o'clock. So I decided that I needed to be here at 5 o'clock. So could you, do you have it? Could you summarize it?
I don't have it in front of me, but
I could pull it up and read it for you if you like. It's
Is
about
it
a
short?
page.
It's lengthy.
No, it's
Okay,
lengthy.
how about just the highlights?
There was a request, or actually, sorry, would you like to summarize it? There was a request to change the slope category from 25% to a lower category, and it talks about a variety of issues related to that as well.
That's kind of what I thought was the,
Anything you wanna
what I
add?
saw quickly was the summation of it. So thank you for clarifying that.
Madam Chair, a question.
Yes, Commissioner O'Donnell.
Do we have any pending applications, or were any applications filed today?
There were no applications filed today. After the work session, staff contacted all the applicants who had had a pre-application conference but had not yet submitted an application. So everyone in that in-between stage. As we talked about previously, you're subject to the code that's in place the day you submit an application. So we did contact a number of people. We did receive 2 applications since that time.
Is that our standard practice to contact applications that are pending when a change is forthcoming?
Yeah, normally we'll talk about it in the pre-application conference because there's more notice. In this case, we had already had the pre-application conference, and so we had done all that initial research. We were just waiting for the applications to come in.
Are there any pending applications presently?
The two, as far as we know, should be it. There's others where we've had pre-application conferences, but say they were last year, and they haven't been asking us questions like they're going to come back with another version, and so we assume that they're not happening. So I think that we should be okay.
I asked that question because we had discussed potentially changing the percentage below 25 to 20 or whatever we decided. We wanted to expedite this through, but there's no particular reason to expedite it through at this point if there's no pending applications, correct?
It's up to the commission, or I can defer to our city attorney to identify the nature of the emergency. What I heard the commission say is that the emergency is that we need to put in place these code amendments, which do include the provisions for reduced density on landslide areas. And that package of code amendments had been presented to the Citizen Involvement Committee, Development Stakeholders Group. There had been a lot of public comment to this point, or opportunities for people to know what that package was.
Thank you. I think I heard something different. There are 2 pending applications that came in the door, but there's several others that have had pre-applications that would be affected by this, who are informed of it, who did not submit their application. So if in fact you were to adopt this tonight with an emergency, it would impact those people who have had pre-applications and could be affected by it. Is that correct? Are there...
From my understanding, we're not confident that any of those other ones will actually submit an application, because the pre-app is just an initial meeting, and so it's so long ago that pre-apps expire. So if someone's contacted us with an expired prep with some intent to reapply, there's likely going to be none who are anticipating today's code as it stands right now, and will get the future code. And so we've informed everybody. And they had the last week to submit, should they want to.
So by virtue of the 2 having applied, this will not apply to their developments?
Yes, anybody who has their application in today will be governed by the code that's in place at the moment.
So a piece of legal advice, in the future, when we ponder these type of actions, should we declare a moratorium until such time as we take action on them?
Moratoriums are difficult to undertake under Oregon land use law. It requires demonstrating a variety of different things, and so there's a process to put in place a moratorium as well. So it's certainly something we can do, but it's not as easy as just declaring a moratorium.
Commissioner McGriff.
Yes, I would concur with Commissioner O'Donnell. My concern at the last meeting was that we have some sensitive areas in Oregon City that I believe should come under this code and should be reviewed under this, and I don't think it's unreasonable. I think it is protecting the community. I still want to adopt it by emergency and get it approved tonight. I'm just a little dismayed, is what I guess I want to say.
Speaking to my fellow commissioners, we recognized that we needed a unanimous vote to get this through in one motion, which is why we agreed on the 25. We could potentially change that right now and disagree on that, and then it would require 2 readings, correct?
So, I'm sorry, I want to check the charter on the ordinance amending clause, but unanimity is required. I don't think it's affected by changes, but I just want to confirm that before I definitively say that. So let me, okay. Yes, the changes could be made tonight as long as the approval was unanimous. It could go in, you could have both readings and have an emergency clause having it go in effect, but it would have to be unanimous, whatever you end up doing.
Okay.
But if there was a change to the slope, a reduction, I think that we were into a noticing requirement as well.
Measure 56 issue then.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you kind of got 2 things going on there.
Yeah.
I was unaware that it was our practice to call up applicants and make them aware of a forthcoming change. We undertook this in the interest of what we felt was protecting the community. And we're still going to proceed with it, but I'm actually amazed that we call those people up. I feel that our first duty is to the citizens of this community, and I know that that's our client base, the applicants, but it's a practice that I was unfamiliar with, of calling them up and letting them know about changes forthcoming. Because I'm aware that in certain of those developments, it almost appeared that there was a flurry of activity immediately upon being noticed, and that is troubling. And I was notified of that by citizens, so I'm not sure we did the community a service. And I think that practice, if is it called for by law to let those applicants know?
So there is no requirement that we allow them, that we notify them. What I can tell you, in a variety of cases throughout the country, to the extent ordinances get rushed through, it tends to not look good for the city. Does it require notice? No. Is it a factor if there's later some litigation between the developer who is disappointed and can identify an ordinance that came through specifically directed at them? It can be problematic.
Again, my only concern is that the people of this community know that this commission is acting in the interest of protecting them. I don't care how the city is portrayed.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I don't totally concur with you, Commissioner O'Donnell, but I guess my concern is for not only the current residents who have been asking us to try to resolve this particular issue and make changes, and also our future residents, so that they are in a position that they are protected. And I think we have our first obligation, as Commissioner O'Donnell said, is to the citizens of this community and the future citizens of our community. I support the development community, but I believe that they have an obligation to work with us to make sure that what they're doing is in the best interest of our community and that they're building things safely. And we have had past practices that has not been the case. So I am willing to go ahead and support the ordinance the way it is, get it passed. We can see about doing another Measure 56 notice if we want to change the slope. I think it's paramount that we do all we can to make sure that mistakes of the past don't continue to happen.
Yeah, I will say I'm in agreement with Commissioner O'Donnell. I think when we were discussing this and bringing it back as an emergency, it would have been good to know that that was the plan, was to reach out to the folks who had pre-applications, because otherwise we didn't really need to do this. I mean, we could have, certainly, but I think where we were going and where we're at today are two different places of what our intent was, of why we were doing this emergency versus where we're at today. So it is what it is. I don't think we can roll back this clock. And I do need to open the public hearing, though, I believe, for this item, officially open the public hearing. So public hearing is opened. Do we have any public comment or anything here tonight? I see none. I see our audience saying that they can't hear us.
We have no control over these speakers. I'm so sorry.
So, no. So
Jerry couldn't hear either when he was here. He couldn't hear
If we get any closer, there's reverberation that happens, and that's part of the problem. Then you have another issue. We're really sorry. Pardon? You can hear me right here? So if I could figure out how far I was, then we can make that the official measurement.
all right, so seeing no public comment, I'm going to close the public hearing. And there's no posters on the wall, and I don't have any of my notes, so I think we need any discussion. I need a vote.
I'd like to call for the question, unless staff has something.
I think staff.
I just have a question for you. You had mentioned coming back to that percentage. This is the last part of the series of code amendments. This is the third.
I just said in the future, we may come back and change it. Not
If you wanted
now.
to sooner than later, then I would, do a continuance of some sort.
No.
Perfect.
All right. Did you make a motion?
I would like to. I'd like to move the first and second readings of ordinance number 21-1012, amending the Oregon City Municipal Code, and I'll let Bill read all the rest of it since that's part of his job.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Kneisman.
Ordinance number 21-1012, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City amending the Oregon City Municipal Code, Title 17, zoning, and declaring an emergency.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
and Mayor Rachel Lyle Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, so,
So we do have to read the second.
Yes.
Reading.
sorry, Mr. Kneisman.
Ordinance number 21-1012, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City amending the Oregon City Municipal Code, Title 17, zoning, and declaring an emergency.
Let me do the vote again. Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Mayor Rachel Lyle Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right.
So it's effective
It is
Today.
effective
90 die.
immediately.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gardner. All right, so moving on to item 8B. This is a resolution regarding water system improvements and our upcoming ballot measures. Mr. Lewis, are you kicking this off?
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Patty's here, and our consultant is here online to go ahead and present, so I'm going to go turn it over to Patty.
All right,
Okay, just,
let's do a mic check, make sure we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Is that a good?
James, can you hear her in the back?
We're doing the public hearing first.
He cannot. Okay.
No? How are we getting to full screen?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to open the public hearing.
Well, we do it a little bit different, it feels like, every single time. Sometimes we do the staff report before we open the public hearing,
Right.
and now, so we're flipping it back. It doesn't matter to me, so.
Sorry, yeah, I apologize. This is going to be a unique circumstance where
Yes, it's a-
we would like the public hearing to be open during the staff report, just because there's going to be times where we're going to have to stop and ask for your feedback, and so we'd like that to be a part of the public hearing. I apologize for not in advance explaining that.
All
And
right.
that's because it's going to a ballot?
No, it's because of the way we've structured the presentation.
Okay,
I
perfect.
gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you,
Yep.
Ms. Riggs, for that explanation. All right. Ms. Nelson?
Good evening. Just a quick overview. We're going to go over, there were some last-minute changes in Monday's packet. I wanted to just highlight kind of what those updates were and explain a little background on that. And then also just highlight some of the capital projects that we're trying to get accomplished with the funding. Also, I'm talking about being proactive. That's really what we're trying to do here, is to think ahead, plan ahead, and fund our water system improvements. And then why do we need voter approval? And then reviewing how we came up with the ballot measure language that you're going to be considering tonight. A lot of that was informed by the community engagement that we talked about last week. And Clark and Libby from Barney and Worth are available if there's questions on that. And then we have two ballot measures before you with explanatory statements with each. One is for allowing us to borrow, and the other is for rates. So with your commission packet on Monday, we had some updates, and I think Bill can attest to this. It was quite a scramble to try to gather up feedback from the bond attorney, our city attorney, our public engagement folks, city recorder, and everybody. We also tried to incorporate feedback that we heard last week from the work session. So we did our best to try to get everything in, but there was some language that was outstanding that we needed legal advice on the bond language. And so the borrowing provisions were updated to allow full faith and credit, which is something that Matt Zook, our finance director, worked with the bond attorney in terms of what kind of language they wanted in there to have flexibility for his lending options. And then we also had some revisions to address some safe harbor concerns, making sure that there's not biased language. And then last thing is that we did try to listen to last week's session in terms of highlighting that the increase that we're looking at is over the charter limit. So we did make a change in the language. You'll see that where it's 3% over the charter limit, and we missed some of the updates through the packet. So that was part of the cleanup. And then as you've noticed, the ballot language is in multiple documents. So anytime we made any change, everything had to be changed. So that's kind of the short story on that. So capital improvements, a couple things I wanted to highlight. I know you've seen this before, but I think I want the public to understand we have $81 million worth of improvements that we need done. It's reflected in our master plan. $58 million of that is funded through SDCs, and we have updated SDCs, so that portion of our revenue source is taken care of. But rates are the other portion of the funding that's needed to finance our capital improvements. And one thing that I think is, and I forgot my props, darn it. I might get those. I think what's important is I was going through the past master plan. So typically, you would update rates anytime you update a master plan. And historically, I think the commission has looked at updating the rates to fully fund the capital, but we haven't been able to do that because we've held ourselves to the 3%. Because going to a ballot takes a lot of effort. Oh, here we are. Because we're in person, I thought this would be great. So what happens is we have to defer projects, and we have a backlog of projects. And I brought these. If you want to touch them, you're welcome to. But this is a pipe that we took out of recently, a couple of months ago, an old rusty pipe, and we have these in the ground that we need to replace. Miles and miles that we need to replace, millions and millions of dollars. And then the other thing is people walk around my desk and ask what this is. I thought it was a pretty patina. This is actually paint from the inside of the Henrici Reservoir that is floating on top of the water. And when we rehab our reservoirs, that's millions of dollars. So these are improvements that we've needed to do for years, that we have to do. And so what we have before you is trying to fully fund all of our capital improvements so we can get these projects done.
Yeah, I want to see them.
Do you want to see that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Here, John.
That's kind of frightening.
You can be my banner. I can do that. Okay.
Do we need to have gloves on?
Here's Big Cal. So proactive, I guess that's why I brought those. I just talked about that, trying to be proactive and getting caught up. And really the big thing is the longer we wait, the bigger the risk of having a broken pipe or a major emergency. And dealing with an emergency is much more expensive than being proactive and getting the work done ahead of time. One thing I wanted to also highlight is funding is needed now. That's something we really haven't talked about. We have 47% of, boy, I'm dry mouth, 47% of the 81 million is needed in the first 5 years. That's why the borrowing is such a big factor. It allows us to get a large quantity of money to be able to fund some of these big projects and get them done sooner. So why do we need voter approval? Again, we talked about the full CIP, but we need 2 ballots to do this, and that's because we have different charters that are affected. Section 58 affects the, I can't read that, the rates over the rate provision, and then sections 47 and 57 impact our debt, so ability to get debt. In terms of timing, I think the city commission made a good decision in terms of deferring. Originally, we were looking at May 2021, and now we're looking at November. So the road ahead. I just want to put this up front. Usually I put this at the end, but today's July 21st, and really what starts the clock is adopting the resolution, adopting the ballot measure. And then we have a 7-day notice that we have to issue. There's 2 timelines shown there. When you get to the resolutions, we have options. The first option is to adopt tonight, which would be the July 21st, with the 7-day notice going out on the 24th. If there's changes that need to be made that we can't incorporate tonight, and you want us to come back on the 4th, that's the second timeline. What's not negotiable is the August 13th date. That's a date in which we have to have it before the election officer, our very own Katie. So she said, we can't budge that. That's fixed. And then I also updated this to reflect the water rates. So just as a reminder, we're not adopting rates here.
we need to know from the voters what we can and cannot do. And so after the election, November 2nd, then we'd be coming back to you in December with an updated rate model, tell you what rates we're looking at within what the voters have approved, and then have before you to adopt whatever rates we're going to move forward with. And what we'd like to shoot for is to try to get that in place by January. So the ballot measures, this was a learning lesson for me. When we were talking about putting the ballot measures together, one of the things that the community engagement folks said is this is a lot of time and effort. And in fact, hiring a consultant to help us with the outreach is very expensive. But one thing I learned is, and you probably already know this, is when we do an election, it costs, I think Katie, you said under $30,000. But that's a lot of money. So it's a big effort, and I can see why, previously the city commission hasn't pursued that. So we want to really be good stewards to our citizens and really put a lot of thought in terms of what is the ballot measure we're putting ahead of them. And that's what we've tried to do. One thing that we did consider is that we have the possibility of one not passing. And I think I talked about that last time. So the approach we initially took was to look at the rate study. I'll get to that in a minute. But trying to plan ahead for what if that didn't pass. So the next piece for informing the ballot measure is the community engagement. So listening to the public and then what spoke to them. And some of the things that we heard because of last year were the wildfires, the storms. Many were aware that, with the ice storm, the power went out. We were very low on our reservoirs and storage. We lost our water supply. And people were aware of that, so that really spoke to them. And also equal service. So we spoke about the deficiencies in our system and where some areas we have trouble during the summer months, meeting our fire demand. We're concerned, we're still doing it, but it's getting tight. And I think right now we have curtailment, or we did during the heat wave. So there's a concern of making sure that everybody in the city has equal service year round. And then also breaking down the rate increase. So that was also important. Once we broke it down to the citizens in terms of an average impact to their bill on a monthly basis and an annual basis, then it was like, oh, this is something I can support. So that was really important. So what was the right number? So that was the next thing we were talking about, because part of the opinion polling and talking to people is trying these rates. So we started out working from the rate model, which we've talked about, I think, back in fall, and I talked about it in January. So our rate model that FCS Group did was completed in 2019, and it provided for fully supporting the capital improvement program, a debt-supported model, which had the 4% for 6 years. If we didn't take out debt, we were looking at a 5% for 20 years. The things that I think are important to understand in the model is that there's many variables. So it assumes escalation costs. We didn't have federal funding factored in there, which now, we've been talking about. SDC rate increases, we didn't know whether or not they'd pass. So, now we can update that to include the increased revenue. And then project implementation schedule. The way that the rate model is modeled right now doesn't show some of our bigger projects being done earlier. We'd like to update that to reflect that. And then also the debt options. So it assumes a certain debt model, and when Matt Zook was looking at it, something we would like to see is to actually reflect the debt model we think is the best option for the city. So what we're proposing is to go to the voters. We know that for sure we need voter approval. There's no question about that. It's just a matter of what number. So go to the voters and to see what we can get support for. Once we have the results, then we'll go back and we'll update the model, and we'll come back with a plan, an updated plan, and then we'll be looking at rates. So what did we learn from the community engagement? Oops. What happened? Oh, there we go. Uh-oh, do I have to toggle through? Well, I can keep talking. So the next thing was, the first thing we did is we tested the 5%, and the logic behind that was in the FCS model as the option that if we didn't get the authority to borrow, that was the higher rate, and it was a 20-year period. And the feedback that we got from our consultant is that, in their experience, when you go to a vote and you're asking the public to vote for an increase, 20 years is eternity, right? So, our goal is to be successful. This is a lot of time and effort. We want to be successful. So their recommendation was to shorten the period. Well, if we shorten the period, we know that the rate's going to have to go up. We don't know exactly how much, but we know it's going to have to go up. So we tested 6% and 7%, feeling like, we didn't want to go higher than that. Oops, lost it again. I'm just pushing the forward button.
We're still seeing the presentation.
Are you still seeing it? Okay.
Yep.
So right before, okay, that's funny. Okay. We're breaking it in, Katie. So I put this table together because I think there were some questions last time at the work session, and I wanted just to show kind of the difference between the different rate increases. So, 4% was something we had talked about if we had a debt-supported option. 5% was the one that was, no borrowing. 6% is what we're proposing. And what you see here is there's a column for monthly increases. That's the monthly increase over what the charter limit would be. So if you see the difference between a 4%, that's 29 cents compared to what we're asking for, which is 88 cents per month. And for the year, that comes out to $10.51 for the 6%. And really, the sense when we were talking, if you look at the opinion polls, it was interesting to watch. I don't know if it was the dollar mine, but once we got to 7%, there was kind of a, not so sure about that. And maybe it's like, geez, under $1. I remember somebody saying, geez, this is a latte, right? It seemed more palatable. So we felt like 6% was something that was supportable and something we could pursue.
I have to interrupt you. Is there some assumption made that the average household pays X number of dollars per month to come up with that chart?
Right, so I
What is
worked
that?
with our finance folks, and we came up with a consumption rate, an average consumption rate, and then we ran the rates based on the current rates, and then applied the percentages and did the differences from there.
So are you saying like that one number looks like it's $11 a month for somebody right
That's
now?
not the total bill. So this is the difference. So every year, there's a 3% increase. So this is that 3% over the charter limit.
3% above the existing 3%.
Exactly.
So that the general public understands, here's my water bill, commonly referred to as a water bill, but known as a utility bill. Which one of these line items is impacted by that?
It's the water distribution. So there's two water line items. One's water treatment, that's South Fork Water, and the other is water distribution, is the Oregon City portion.
So those two items are impacted, water treatment and water distribution.
Water treatment's not impacted, it's only the water distribution.
Water distribution.
Correct. And that was something else that when we did the focus groups, that was also something that people pulled out their bills and were trying to understand, because there was an impression that you're applying this increase to the whole utility bill and not just the one line item.
Right.
So I think, our work ahead of us is really to educate the public and help them understand.
Well, that's my concern, that the ballot measure is absolutely clear what you're applying this to. Like, for example, my bill that month was $26.47. So if I bump that 6%, my monthly bill is going to go up 6% of that amount, not 81 cents. It's
Just for the water distribution portion. And I don't
It
know-
is. That's what I'm talking about. I got it right
okay.
here. I just want the people to be clear on what they're voting on. Percentages are elusive, but real dollars talk.
Right.
Okay, I just want to be sure.
You're not alone. Other people had challenges too. So for the ballot measures, we have two before you. I think Katie was alluding to it because we had to break them into two resolutions. The way that I've set up the presentation is to walk through one and then have a decision and then walk through the second. And Katie, I don't know, how are we doing the public hearing portion? Are we just going through, or?
We'll do the one and have them comment, and if there's someone from the public that would like to speak, we would allow that if the mayor was ready for it, and then we would move on to the next one.
Okay, thank you. So the first one that we're looking at is, I call it the borrowing measure. Again, city charter requirements for section 47 require that we have anything over 25,000. Again, we're looking at funding 38 million. We need voter approval. And then Section 58 looks at prohibiting general obligation bonds and revenue bonds, and we're looking to have that as an option as well. The resolution reads, a resolution calling for an election and submitting a measure to the electors of Oregon City authorizing the borrowing for water system improvements. It authorizes up to $38 million, and the repayments over 20 to 30 years. We did that intentionally to allow us to go after a federal loan program called WIFIA, which is a long-term, low-interest loan program. The revenues used to retire the debt will include water system revenues, and this is the portion that we had a little bit of update, was also we want the option to be able to pledge full faith and credit of the city if that provides better terms. And I think Matt Zook is also available if you had any questions on that. And then the other point we want to make to the public is that this does not involve any new property taxes. We're not looking at that. So this is the actual ballot measure language. That's the other challenge we had, is we're very limited in terms of the number of words that we have in there. It was quite the challenge to get everything. We think we have it just right. And I think the highlights that I want to make is that the language, the first one, the caption, my understanding is like 80% of the voters, they just read the caption. They don't even go beyond that. So it's important that we have enough information in there they can understand it. And if they want more information, they can go to the question and then to the summary. So the ballot measure reads, authorize borrowings for water system improvements. And then the question further explains that by saying, shall Oregon City be authorized to borrow up to the principal amount of $38 million for water system improvements? And the summary was really crafted with help from our community engagement folks to make sure it's speaking in terms that the public will understand. So the first thing was to clearly identify the need. You know, why do we need this increase? And trying to explain that to people and put it in terms that they could understand. And then city seeking a balanced approach. So this is, last time we talked about the importance, because we have two ballot measures, making sure voters understand that they're connected. So what we're doing here is explaining that you're taking a balanced approach. So if we have borrowing, then it's going to allow us to not increase the rates as much. So trying to convey that and help them understand that. And then the benefits of borrowing kind of expand on that. Okay. All right, so there's an explanatory statement as well. That also has to be accepted and adopted. That would go in the voter's pamphlet. We developed the information based on opinion research as well. Keeping Oregon City systems affordable by borrowing, so we're trying to explain that concept as well. The water system improvements and educating people. And then also we wanted to emphasize something that came through on, I think, every group we talked to is people concerned that development's paying their way, right? So we're highlighting that, you know, the SDCs, the water SDCs have already been approved, that development is paying their way. So that's also a key part of that explanatory statement. And this is where we need you to make a decision. So tonight, we're asking you to consider passing Resolution 2142, resolution submitting a measure authorizing water rate increases up to 3% annually above the city charter for 6 years for the electors of Oregon City, as well as the explanatory statement. The options before you are to approve the resolution and explanatory statement as provided, approve as amended if you have amendments, and option 3 would be to ask us to come back at August 4th.
Okay, so are we open it for public comment at this point? I don't see that we have anybody here to give public comment. There's no one online. All right, so then we can move to commission deliberation and discussion. Can you, Ms. Nelson, move back 2 slides? Let's just start with the ballot measure language for comments, discussion.
I'll go first.
Okay. Let's see if you have the same comments that I have.
You're much smarter than me. I struggle with the ballot measure language because it's 3% above the existing 3%. So like I just did the math based on your answer. And when you compound that 6% over 6 years, it's almost 43% increase. And I feel like we're kind of hiding that. So my bill in 6 years, my monthly bill, instead of $26.47, will go to $37.54. My yearly cost will go up to $133. Well, go up, I think it's more, it's $133 of an increase. So I want the ballot measure to be clear on what people are voting for. It's the existing 3 plus 3, and that in 6 years, the rate would be up 42%. Now, I'm not opposed to the thing. I just want people to know exactly what they're voting on when they read it. And it's kind of a math problem that's kind of elusive. That's all I have to say, Madam Mayor.
Well, and this particular one, though, is all about borrowing. It's not actually, the other ballot measure is the one about the percentage.
The borrowing one.
Yeah, the amount we're going to borrow, but.
And this one says up to 6%, and all people are going to see is 6.
So,
And from a tactical viewpoint, all people say is that's doubling the existing rate.
so the ballot measure that we're looking at right now is the borrowing, and I think the one that you're referring to is the rates, which we're going to get to next. There's 2 ballot measures.
I know. I'm just telling you my perception of what you're putting forth and how the public's going to view it.
Commissioner O'Donnell, I'm a little confused then, because I see what you're talking about with regard to the rate ballot measure, but I'm not seeing this in the borrowing ballot measure.
No, and I was combining the two because
okay.
they are in tandem, so maybe I jumped ahead and should not have. But
Right.
go ahead.
All right, so let's talk about, I'll just state, the caption, I'm not that fond of it. I don't understand why the word borrowing is plural, and I think.
Borrowings?
Yeah, it's borrowings. And so if a large percentage of the public is only going to read that caption, I don't like that caption. If you're saying they're not going to read much, I mean, for me, I can come up with a plain language versions that says, authorize the city to borrow funds for water system improvements or something, like something super plain, but is there something else that's guiding this?
So this was one of the legal changes. Our bond attorney actually kept changing it back to borrowings, and I'm going to let Bill speak to that.
Is that a legal term?
Not being bond counsel, I'm going to give you my educated guess, and I can confirm with bond counsel that there may be multiple borrowings that, we go out for one, set where we borrow 10 million and we borrow from somebody else. And if it's borrowing, then we want to make sure that it's that multiple opportunities to, obtain the funds.
But do we have to say authorize borrowings for water system improvements? Like the layperson, I don't know, is if that's what they're going to read, why couldn't we say authorize the city to borrow funds, like in a much more understandable plain language?
And I don't know if there is a specific reasons why that borrowings has to come back, and so I would want to talk to bond
I can
counsel.
tell you we started out with very simple language.
I agree with you, Mayor.
But we want it to pass, and so it's one thing for a bond attorney to say, because they understand it, and say this is the way it should be because it checks all of their boxes. If it's not legally required and we have some flexibility, then I'm not sure why we were not shooting for plain language that we know that our citizens can understand.
So this is one of those things that I can go back and ask, and we can make changes, I'm presuming, for August 4th, right?
Madam Mayor.
And so what I want to just clearly understand is the borrowings is the difficulty, right? So you want something simpler that's borrowing funds, or it's not just
I think it's more than that. Borrowings is one of the key issues, but it's also how to make it a little plainer and direct. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
I agree with the mayor on simplicity of the statement if it legally fulfills the obligation. But even that statement, says, shall Oregon City be authorized to borrow up to a principal amount? I would say, if nothing else, put in the word total principal amount so they know that you're not going to go beyond that. You're not going to do multiple borrowings, each of which could potentially be up to 38 million total amount.
So we're talking about the caption, I believe, correct? The caption, it's limited to 10 words, and that's part of the challenge. So.
Well, I did it in 10, so authorize the city to borrow funds for water system improvements. That's 10 words.
Yep.
Like, to me, that's, I don't know how it's any
Do we
plainer
need to
than
leave the
that.
38 million in? Is that being?
Well, that's the question.
Well, that's how the question is
That's
posed.
the question.
It's her argument. They want to talk
Yeah, I was
about
just talking about the caption,
Just-
just because,
Oh, yeah, okay, the caption, yeah, I agree with that. I thought you were talking about the question.
No, just the caption.
Okay.
No, I keep jumping forward.
So I heard authorize the city to borrow
funds.
funds for water system improvements, or are you wanting to plug in the dollar amount in the?
No,
That's moved on to the
no,
question,
Commissioner
so-
O'Donnell had moved on to the question.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Commissioner
I'm
O'Donnell's
going to go
confusing.
way in the back.
Okay.
So anyway, that's just my thought on the caption.
I'm with you on it. I like simplicity for the,
I do think that it, like Bill said, and I'll just say it maybe again, in case it's different, but we would never intend in this, in any scenario, whether we have the
Tom
rate
can't hear you.
increase we need or
They can't
not,
hear you.
There you go.
so we would never intend, whether we have a rate increase or not, if the borrowing scenario were to pass, to pursue a $38 million ask, right? Or request for a loan. We know that we're going to take that in smaller chunks that make sense so that, the WIFIA funds are interesting because there's a letter of acknowledgement that gives you a certain dollar amount, but you really don't have to borrow those funds, and they don't start charging you interest until you need them. So we're going to take them in chunks for projects. That's our intent. Especially if we use WIFIA funds. If we go through a different scenario with a lender, I think those terms may be a little bit different, but I don't want the voters to think that we're going to do it as a one-time thing. The borrowing, that's why I think they came up with the terms borrowings. But again, Patty and others were in the heat of that conversation. But I think that's where that's going to come down to. And so if they can live with borrow funds, because funds is plural,
Right.
then maybe we're good. So
Well, and if borrowings is a key term, maybe we can work with incorporating it somewhere in the summary, and that might work. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
Okay.
are the WIFIA funds included in that 38 million?
WIPIA is one of the mechanisms, one of the loans that this ballot measure would allow us to pursue.
Yeah, I just want to
Yes.
make, so that is part of the 38 million?
Yes.
We're hoping that we would be approved for WIPIA
Yeah.
funds, yes, for the
Okay,
38
so
million.
this ballot measure passing would give you the authorization to pursue WIFIA?
Correct.
without this measure, we cannot pursue WIFIA funds.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so anything, I think we beat the caption.
Yeah, not the caption, but my question is a little more generic. So I went back and read the charter part, and I do recommend it for late night reading if you can't sleep, which is what I was doing. I want to make it understand clearly for myself. So I remember when we voted on them back in the day. So the measure involving, which you said 47 and 50, was it 47 and 57 or
47 and 57.
47 and whatever the numbers were, that only applies to water, or does it apply to borrowing in general?
Across
Across the board. Okay, that's what I thought I was reading, but I said, okay, so let's say we wanted to borrow money for sanitary, that charter amendment still applies. Okay.
Correct.
I kept thinking, okay, so it's only water related. The earlier one that you mentioned in the slide, that only applies to water.
The rate provision is
Right,
only
okay.
unique to water.
Okay.
All right, so is there anything else on question? I think Commissioner O'Donnell made a comment about, since we're making changes, about saying borrow up to a total, maybe total instead of the word principal, up to a total amount of 38 million.
And again, I'd want to run that by bond counsel. There may be something specific about principal as
Okay.
opposed to,
Yeah, I don't
the
think a lot
interest
of
and
people will know
how.
what that specifically means. Principal is one of those terms that I don't know if the public, well, I didn't know how it was being used there, so I guess I would consider myself a member of the public.
So I would agree with that. If that's something, a tiny tweak that could be made, then I would agree with Commissioner O'Donnell.
Again, just thinking of interest, there's principal and interest. My sense is we're talking about a $38 million project. Paid off over time is likely going to be more than $38 million.
Because of interest?
Because of interest.
That's probably why it's listed as principal.
So that's why it says principal amount.
But we can ask.
Maybe there's a
Well, that makes sense.
synonym or something that says the same thing as,
Yeah, and I think Commissioner O'Donnell's suggestion of total makes a lot of sense. The difficulty may be that from a bond counsel's perspective, they just want total clarity of this is the amount is principal and
the interest
that
is
there's
spread
no
out,
wiggle
because
room.
we can't add any more words.
At least I don't feel like the public will get hung up on that as much as they would that caption. Principal versus total, but I agree with you. It makes sense. So for the summary, I don't think it's on the slides, but it is in your packet as Exhibit A. The summary is in there.
It's on Exhibit A?
Yes.
Yeah.
I found it interesting, Ms. Nelson, you brought up the line that I think bond counsel said we needed to add, which was that line that I thought was confusing. No surprise there. The city may also pledge its full faith and credit if that provides more favorable
We
terms.
were going around on that till the very last, yes. Because I mean, it's hard. I mean, for the average person, right, reading that, it's,
Yeah, I heard you say that bond counsel is required for us, for it to be
Yes.
in there.
yes.
In general reading, I look at that and was like, I have no idea what that means.
It's used quite liberally when they're talking, I'll just say, quoting Marketplace. They talk about borrowing and the Treasury and the Fed, and they use the word full faith and credit constantly. Almost every day it comes up in one of the newscasts.
Mr. Kvaisman.
This provision is not required, but if it's in there, it gets us better rates. Because what it says is, at the end of the day, we're going to pay you back with wherever we can get
Right.
the money. And so,
that's
whoever's
just
lending you the money is saying, okay, you're going to give me full faith and credit.
Yes.
That I'll lend it to you at a lesser amount. And I see Mr. Zook may have some comments here as well.
Mr. Zook, do you have some comments to make?
Yeah, I jumped in before Bill finished his explanation, but full faith and credit is required if we want to offer up more than just water revenues to pay back the debt. Meaning this, that as an investor, if you look at collateral that the city's offering up, and it is only water revenues, that's fine. But I'm going to require a little bit more interest from you for that pledge. If in the event water revenues are not sufficient, then the investor takes the hit. With a full faith and credit pledge, the city is offering to other revenues, such as general fund revenue or other revenues that's not otherwise legally restricted, to further pay back the debt service. So the investor now has two sources of revenue that are being pledged by the city. Thus, he's taking less risk, which would he would offer up a lower interest rate. There is one step further that we did not pursue, which is a general obligation bond, which you're familiar with. But that would allow the city to actually levy an additional tax, and we did not. That is not part of this package. That would require an entirely different set of resolutions. And so that is why the language of full faith and credit is in this measure. If the commission wanted to just simplify it to revenue bonds, as Bill said, yes, we could do so, but it may cost us a little bit more in the form of an interest rate. To be clear to those that are listening and the citizens of the city, the staff is not planning to pay for the debt service from anywhere other than water rates and SDC revenue. So we are modeling everything around that source of revenue in particular. So hopefully that adds clarity.
All right, thank you, Mr. Zook. You were very difficult to hear and understand what you were saying.
Yes.
So, since this is our test night of this audio system, I would say let's not have any staff presentations via Zoom because we won't be able to hear what they have to say. And so I think I got what he was saying.
I did, yeah.
It sounds like that sentence is optional, but it's better if we leave it in there. It gives the city more options as far as borrowing. I guess I would just say, I don't know where we're at on the 175 word limit. If there's any other thing that you think is needed to help make it more clear, or to add a couple of words or a sentence to make it understandable, or just leave it and don't worry about it, I don't know.
The one thing, there are some edits that we have talked about to address maybe some concerns we had for the safe harbor. And so those would be additional edits that we would put in here, and they're more related to the wording on the benefits of borrowing, with the terms benefits. Okay.
Yeah, we want to look at it as more of a neutral approach. The ballot measure, the caption, the question, and the summary needs to be more of a neutral. It can't be for or against, or advocating for or against a ballot measure. So we do have a little bit of cleanup language in there just to make sure that it's a little bit more neutral language and not advocating for the ballot measure. So we would ask at this time that you would bring this item back to the August 4th meeting and approve it at that meeting with the proper language, and also if you had any changes to the explanatory statement.
That sounds good. I think we've kind of gone through. Any other comments on this item before we move on to the next?
No, I'm okay.
And by the
Mr.
next, Mayor,
Vice
do you mean the explanatory statement for the borrowing one, or do we want to move, there's one more piece to this?
To this one?
I think so.
Yes.
To the borrowings, or are we moving on to the other ballot? Are you saying we're moving on to the other ballot measure?
Well, if there's any changes that you want to the explanatory statement for the borrowing, I'd like to try to capture those so that I can, take those away and hopefully bring them back.
That's in Exhibit A?
No, that's the explanatory statement.
Okay.
I think it's two probably.
Okay.
And the title, I did add borrowing on the top so that you can distinguish.
I'll say in general, while folks are looking, in general, I thought it read pretty well. I didn't really have any issues with it. I thought it did a pretty good job. I think it still has that statement that I thought was confusing about the full faith and credit thing, but it may not be in the explanatory. But overall, I thought it was fine.
Yeah, I knew it had a 500-word limit. I remembered that.
Any other comments on the explanatory statement?
No, I don't have any. Sorry, I don't have any.
No.
All right.
All right, I think we thought it was pretty good.
So then we'll go ahead and bring back those
The one
changes.
prepositional phrase, but that's wordsmithing.
All right, so the other ballot measure, or do we need to do anything, Mr. Geisman?
No, if we're bringing it back to you on August 4th, we don't need anything further, and we'll just put it, work with bond counsel and get that back to you, and then let's move on to rates.
Okay.
Katie, this is an advancing.
So this means we're moving on to discuss, technically it's 8C,
we
which is
go.
about the water rate, the actual rate increase
got it.
ballot
Yep,
measure.
yep.
All right, Mr. O'Donnell.
Okay. All right. Here we go. So talking about rates, so this is the provision in the state charter, section 58, and you're right, Commissioner McGriff, this is unique to water. So it requires a voter approval for any water rate increase above 3% annually. The resolution 2143 reads, a resolution submitting a measure authorizing water rate increases up to 3% annually above the charter limit for 6 years to the electors of Oregon City. We're highlighting that it's temporary, limited to 6 years, increasing it over the city limits, or city charter limit, and then it's an up to provision. So as we spoke, it's not locking in a rate, but it's setting a ceiling. So the voters would be authorizing us to increase rates up to 6% and not exceed that for 6 years. The actual language that we have in the ballot, the caption, again, is a 10-word limit. It reads, authorize temporary water rate increase above 3% annual charter limit. The question, 20-word limit, is shall city be authorized to increase water rates up to 6% per year for 6 years for water system improvements? And then the summary that, and you can read that further in your packet, but the key points that we were highlighting is defining the needs, as we spoke about before, and then highlighting the city's goals to replace its old pipes and provide reliable water service through summer months and helping us to fight wildfires and our disasters. And then trying to explain the rate increases and how it impacts the residents and translating that into impact or change in the monthly water distribution rates as well as the annual. And let's see, do we want to stop and talk about the ballot language, or do you want me to go all the way through? Which is just like we did before. So the resolution, again, I can read it again, is a resolution submitting a measure authorizing water rate increases for up to 3% annually above the charter limit for 6 years to the electors of Oregon City. And there are 3 options that you're being considered. And I think I missed a slide here in the explanatory statement. So again, that's in the voters pamphlet. It's based on the opinion research, and we've provided more detail in there in terms of what are the water system improvements that we need, as well as highlighting that developers are paying for their portion. And I guess at this point, looking for feedback on the ballot measure.
Again, I think it's clarity. I mean, which statement would you like me to review? The one that says item?
Let's go item by item, caption, then we'll talk about the question and then the summary. And then we'll have the explanatory statement.
As we discuss any of these, my concern is that people understand it's 3%, it's 3% up to an additional 3% on top of the existing 3%. So like, if I read 3%, see, I would, like on the item statement there, just sorry to jump around, but calling for an election authorized water rate increases of up to 3% annually above the current 3% charter limit. See, I think that's clear. We're going to do 3 plus 3 on the item statement. Now we can go back and start with the caption and go over.
Not the agenda item. Okay, I got it. Well, okay.
So Commissioner O'Donnell, I know we talked a lot about the caption. We've had a couple different versions. Part of where we landed on this is that we felt like temporary was important to the voters to know that this is limited, right? They're not voting in a rate increase, forever. And then also the thought about listing that it's an increase over the 3% charter limit. If they're concerned about how much, right, then they're going to hopefully read the question and then the summary, which hopefully provides the clarity that you're speaking to. But it's a tough one because you can't fit everything.
It's a surprisingly complex topic to cover in such a short period of time.
We've all run for election up here, and we know how much voters read and how in-depth they read. That's why when
all your words.
When I look at the question, once again, I put in up to a total of 6% per year. I don't want them to think it's going to be 6 on top of 3 or whatever. I want it absolutely clear.
Do you think the question provides the clarity where it says it's increasing water rates up to 6% per year for 6 years?
No, because I think it provides the opportunity for someone to interpret it that it's 6% above the existing 3%. And I want to eliminate that possibility.
Yeah, that's true.
So you're saying you want to be more clear that it's up to 3% above
Existing.
the already approved existing 3%.
And we tried that, but we couldn't meet the word limits. You know,
With the 20 word
so that's where I'm
limit.
wondering,
10
and I don't know
words
if we could do this, if we could do it in the summary, but,
We'll take out other words like old for pipes.
We're at 10 words now for the caption. That's what you're.
Are you talking about the caption or the question? We're talking about the question, right?
Do whatever you want.
Yeah. I think, to me, the caption, I understand it's general and it gets to the point. It's correct because it's very broad. But the question, which is more detailed, which is what Commissioner O'Donnell's getting to, I don't know, I haven't counted those words. How many words is it?
I don't disagree with the caption. to be
What
quite
about
honest.
rates up to 3%, but rates up to 3% more? Well, is that at 20 words already?
It's at 20 words right now.
Exactly, yes.
Exactly.
Cover the concept.
so again, I could play with this. I understand the intent to be, that we'd like to have somewhere in here that we're authorizing up to 3% above the 3% charter limit.
Right.
That's too many words.
It's hard to get in there, though, with, yeah.
Like Commissioner O'Donnell said, I mean, we could start chopping off, of, and we may not be able to get in the caption, but maybe in the question.
Well, the question is what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
we're talking about the question.
We're not talking about the caption.
Okay.
We're
Yeah.
okay with the caption.
Yeah. Caption is fine, we're talking about the question.
So
What about,
up and to are 2 words, 4 letters.
how about,
But you could do an additional 3%.
or
So
rates
city shall be authorized to increase water rates
3,
an additional 3%.
right.
So that would replace those 2 words with 2 longer words, but
It would work.
That's all right. It's
one
word
would
count,
be
not letter
longer.
count, right?
I applaud the effort, but what it does is take away the up to consideration.
Yeah, and
Although I
right,
think
we need
people are
that
going to
in there.
see,
Right.
whatever you see, it's like when you get quoted a price, that's, you don't hear up to this much, you just hear the price.
Right.
I think it's good for your word limit. If you can come up with something better with the 20, I'm sure you've been working
I
on
think I
this.
understand what the
Yeah.
concern is.
Yeah, and I think there's that opening phrase, we can probably get rid of, shall city be authorized to, something more like may city increase.
Yeah, take out
Yeah,
the
there's a lot
be
of little
authorized
helper
to
words.
increase. Yeah.
All right, Bill, you're my buddy. We're working on this.
That's good. You just removed like 3 or 4 words right there by saying may city increase water rates.
Authorizes city takes out 2 words right away.
Right.
Yeah.
May city
Do
increase
we
water
have, but we
rates.
have to say authorized city or?
Does it have to be posed in question form?
Yes.
Okay.
But your suggestion is a question, though.
Right.
May city increase water rates.
Up
You
to
just removed-
3%.
Yeah.
An additional 3% over
3% charter.
existing charter limits.
But yours removed 3 words, so anyway, I think you guys, I think you guys know if you can get it great, you're gonna come back on the 4th.
Are there any comments on the summary? And that's in your packet.
My only question was, there isn't anything, or maybe it's there in the explanatory statement about after the 6 years. I know we've talked about it a lot, that it returns to the 3 years.
3%.
The 3%, I mean, yeah, I don't believe there's anything in there that says what happens after the 6 years.
There's not, and that was my point previously. This talks about the first year, which I don't know how they got the 1051, but I did my own bill, and my bill in 6 years goes up $133. So I don't see how they get.
Well, that's $10.50 a month, so 10 times 12 would be $120.
No, that's per year, 1051 per year.
And that's over the charter authorized amount of increase. So that's actually, assuming you have a 3% increase that's already authorized, that number reflects the additional.
So you're saying the difference, not what your
The
total bill
difference,
will end up
exactly.
being?
And I think that it actually says that in here.
Which means you would calculate 3%, not 6%.
Right.
Potentially.
Yeah, in the first year, this would cost a typical household 88 cents per month or $10.51 per year over the existing authorized increase. So,
All right, anything else?
Nope.
I don't have anything else. My only comment was just the one, it looks like you have extra words, so I would consider whether or not that would be beneficial to
add
a sentence
it returns
that
to
says-
the 3%.
It returns to 3% at the end of the 6-year period, because I think that's like a hanging chad there that we're not kind of addressing. Other than, that was my only, otherwise, I think it reads well. I think you did a great job of putting that together.
It was quite challenging.
Very challenging. She probably had her dictionaries out all over the place.
We all can appreciate those word limits. You write what you want to write, and then you do your word count, and you say, oh my gosh, I got to strip out 200 words.
And everybody had an opinion on which word they had to have.
Yeah.
And hyphenated words count as one.
Right, yeah.
I think we had up to as one word at one point.
Remember those teachers that used to let you have a 3x5 card to get as many words as you could on them, and you just got smaller and smaller? That's what this feels like.
We were 200-word limits, and mine was 200.
Okay, Commissioner McGriff.
Yes, so Mr. Lewis, how old do you think that piece of pipe is? Is that old ductile iron? I mean, that's what it looked like to me, that's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, I didn't really study it, but I don't know if I don't think it's ductile iron. I think it's a steel line.
It's from Irving Street.
Irving
Okay,
Street, yeah.
That's not as old.
80 years,
Yeah.
70 years, I don't know.
That's the feed pipe to Denise's house, isn't it?
Remember I told you I had the wooden one?
Oh, yeah, she has wooden
I had
pipes.
the wooden pipe going to my house.
She's past needing replacement. All right, so I think we need a motion. I need to, blah, blah, blah. I need to close the public hearing if we don't have any public comment. So
Are there any comments on the
public
explanatory
commenters?
statement?
No,
No, okay.
I don't see any public comment, so.
Publix, are you commenting?
Anybody want to comment?
I have a question.
Yeah, you have to come up.
You can be at that one right there.
Ms. Wilhite, you know we're going to ask you to come up. Come on up, state your name and city for the
Have you been
residents.
doing this?
Amy Wilhite, citizen of Oregon City. I have a question. Going to what Frank was saying, in this explanatory statement, it talks about $10 a year, so that means that's year one? So then year two, it goes up another 12. So we're now at $22. Year three, we're going, I think this is misleading by saying it's just going to go up $10 a year, because I don't think that, they think that that's going to be $10. Oh, okay, I'll vote for $10. In 2 years, when they get the bill and it's now another 12 and another, I think they think that the 10 years is over the lifetime period.
And that's what I said, Amy.
Yeah,
At the
and
end
that's
of
what I'm
10
saying,
years, I'm
you're-
paying $133 more a year.
Right, and so part of our challenge is, so I'm trying to make it as clear as possible that that does apply to only the first year, because we are limited to a number of words in the ballot. And so we
I
can't,
understand, but that's misleading.
Yeah.
Do you have suggestions on how to
I mean,
to
I
make
think
it
you just
clear?
have to figure it out, how you can have a little year one, year two, year three, I mean, or something. I mean, you can't just say
Maybe that's in a
per year
supplemental
because.
statement that gets put in, somebody else pays for, that says, here's what the rate will be, blah, blah, blah.
Come on, Denise, you know the realistic, that's not going to happen. You've got to put it, we all know, you got to put it up front. You got
No,
to
I'm
put it
saying,
in
you
your
know how
words.
when you have a ballot title?
Yes, I do, and nobody reads all those extras.
But we can't put it in there because we're limited by the number of
I think we
words.
can
That's the
figure it out.
problem.
I have not had time to reword it, but I think you can wordsmith it, I really do.
All right, thank you, Ms. Wilhite, for the comments. I appreciate that. I do agree, there's 50 words left, or 46 words left for the explanatory statement. So I do agree. I think as much as we can be clear about that, about what that means, just because we don't want to come across as misleading. That's not our goal here. We want it to pass, but we all.
There is another, I mean, you could almost, take the 6 years each year and look, year one, but the problem is we're using that typical bill, so that's one little problem. The other is whatever rate increase we adopt. And I know Commissioner O'Donnell has said it's going to be 6%. Well, that's the commission's decision yet to happen. And when we know, I'd love to believe that we're successful at getting, the right indebtedness that kind of helps us, over the hump, so that we're showing that maximum. I agree with that, and we don't want it to be too high so it's not successful, but I'm still trying to keep positive thoughts that maybe the actual adoption of rate increases could be something less than that.
And that's really what we tried to build in, and I think that Matt Zook was a real key part of that, right? Thinking about how do we get the best rate, right? And that's why we have those words in there, so.
Yeah, and I believe when the city commission first gave direction, we approved a 4% rate, not 6, and that's been one of those things. So we're going to come back and after the ballot measure, see what passes, and then we'll be discussing what the actual rate will be. Commissioner O'Donnell?
I just want to respond to Mr. Lewis. I'm not saying that we'll do 6%. I'm saying when somebody quotes you a job and they say it's going to be up to $3 million, you plan on $3 million. You don't plan on 1 or 2. You plan, it could cost me 3, and that's what people are going to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that.
And 3 is twice, 6 is twice 3, so the psychological effect of that may not be a good move. But that's for these folks to determine.
All right, so I believe I'm going to close the public hearing. We have no more public comments. I'm going to close the public hearing. And I believe we need a motion, though, to probably
I guess I just want to clarify one thing, too. Are we comfortable with up to 6%, right? Because like you said, originally it started at 4.
Yes, I believe that's where we landed in our work session, that, yes, we understood the need to say up to 6% to give us some flexibility. And we're hoping it will be lower.
Yeah, I think getting to what Commissioner O'Donnell was saying, I think the hard part in explaining this is that if it fails, it's still going to go up 3% a year.
Sure.
Which is the maximum we can do, right?
Right.
So let's say it was $29, by year 6, you're at $34.63 at just 3% a year over 6 years. If you went 6% over that same time, you're at $41.14. So it's hard, right? Because it's already, we've already got a 3% in there. And so splitting out the numbers is a little bit difficult.
You have to show the existing, this is over 6 years, this is what it would happen, because there's increases anyway. We're going to do it 3% because we already don't have enough money.
Most likely, right? Yep.
Okay.
See, I struggle with the numbers they come up with, because it's like, well, my bill's not so small that it means 81 cents. I don't think I'm a water hog. I mean, my bill's $26.47.
Frank, can you, do you see how many units you're using? Like 9, 8, 7, 6?
Can we put his water bill up for the public to?
Sure.
I would be curious.
I use a lot because when I leave these meetings, I feel dirty.
Would you like to second that, Rocky? I just made a motion. Frank's water bill up as the example.
I'd be happy to.
Did you hear what I said? When I leave these meetings, I feel dirty.
We use 6 units that's what we came up as our average, so, as a residential.
5.
Well, see, I can't say you're below average, but
You're welcome. See, it says 5 and my bill's $26.47.
He's not an average person.
So I can, if you want to look at that, and I can show you how we came up with the numbers, I'd be happy to look at that. I had finance check it. I mean, we pulled the bills, we pulled the distribution, and we took the flat rates, the consumption rates, ran the numbers, and then did the delta over the 3%. So that's what those numbers represent.
I'm reading the bill and it says 5 units.
Okay.
Okay. So do we need a motion to continue this, or we're just done on these? Okay, we're done.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Nelson.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where's my props?
They're right up here.
Oh, yeah, we have your
Yes, your props. We don't want to steal
props.
this.
All right, we have one more.
I think everybody needs to get a piece of pipe like that to say, this is what you're dealing with, folks.
Yeah, let's get done with it.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to be fairly quiet on this one, so.
Excuse me.
All right, so We're full of laughs tonight. This is great. Hopefully, they're not all like this.
What was in
This is
that,
good.
what was in that dinner he had?
Yeah. All right, so we're going to move on to item number 9A, general business. This is a first reading of an ordinance establishing a public art mural program. Mr. Way.
Thank you very much. I feel like I should have brought up Prop 2, but after we pass this, then we will have something to point back to that's newer.
Bring a little mural.
So this is a proposed code amendments to our sign code to allow essentially murals to be added. And we chatted about it at our last city commission meeting on the 7th, and we incorporated the comments from the city commission. Just a high level of those comments include allowing murals to be on rooftops, allowing the city commission to take the place of an arts commission if the arts commission is inactive. And then the last one was the prohibition on murals on designated historic structures that were originally constructed as dwellings. And so those have all been incorporated. If the first reading is passed tonight, we'll have the second reading on August 4th, and then it'll be effective 30 days later. I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Nope.
All right, thank you, Ms. Turway. I did review the red lines. I did see that, I appreciated the way you did it, red lines and then the green text showing us the amendments based on the city commission conversation. That made it really helpful and easy, so I really appreciated that format. Any comments or questions from the commission?
No, I'm ready to make a motion on this, but I wanted to let you know that a number of citizens have reached out to me that they are applying for the Arts Commission position. So when does that close?
It was 30 days from the date that we
30
opened
days,
it, and I
okay.
apologize, I don't have the date right here, but we have
Yeah.
received up to, I think it's like 8 to 9 applications.
Excellent.
Awesome.
We got the word out. Okay.
That's good.
I'm ready to make a motion for the first reading of ordinance number 21-1011, amending the Oregon City Municipal Code and establishing a public art mural program.
Second.
Mr. Kvisman.
Ordinance number 21-1011, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City amending Title 15 Buildings and Construction, Chapter 1528, signs of the Oregon City Municipal Code.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Mayor Rachel L. Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Did you think you were
Thank
going
you
to
very
live this
much.
long, Commissioner Smith, to see this happen again?
No.
Okay, well, there you go. Just goes to show you.
I do have one quick question. Ms. Turway, has anyone reached out to DOCA to let them know, if we talked to them about the art mural?
Yes.
The new stuff and the change that we made about rooftops? That was
They are aware.
they are aware?
Yes.
Okay, good. Commissioner McGriff, plugging them in, I'm sure.
Mayor.
All right, so is Matt,
He had a
is
question,
he
or he had a hand
for,
up.
he's
I
for
think.
communications, I presume?
I think he was going to
was
respond
for
to
the
your
mural.
question
Mural.
that you asked about the
Oh,
main,
okay.
if you had talked to DOCA, he was going to respond to that.
I got you. All right, I think we're good. Communications, Mr. Conkle.
The only update, we did go back, as we had discussed with the commission, and we started implementing parking fees citywide. We implemented that on the 19th. Over the last 3 days, we've been issuing warnings, and we're going to start implementing enforcement beginning tomorrow. So getting back to normal operations in some areas. That's all that I have for tonight.
Is there a reason that we're going to start tomorrow rather than maybe next Monday? Did we say on the A boards and the thing that we're going to start enforcing on the what's tomorrow, 22nd?
I think we said we'd start implementing it on the 19th.
Right.
Right.
But you said we're going to start, we've been doing warnings, and we're going to start giving tickets as of tomorrow. So I'm asking, is there any reason why we are saying that we're starting that tomorrow as opposed to letting us go for the whole week, giving people warnings and starting enforcement on Monday?
Well, at this point, we posted it, right?
We put in a small grace period. Well, we could have started ticketing on the first day. There was sufficient notice.
But we weren't supportive of that, so that's, I'm just asking if we are allowing for a little more of a grace period because.
I feel like we gave a grace period. We put notices up, we've told everybody, it's been on social
I agree.
media.
I'm just saying, we can have a little more grace in our city if we want to. I'm not saying we have to, I'm just saying, is there some requirement that we are saying tomorrow, we said somewhere, tomorrow on the 22nd, you get a ticket?
We said on the 19th.
Right, but we've been giving them a grace period.
Correct.
Okay? But just asking the question on behalf of the community. I do want you to know, staff, that I have received a lot of very positive comments about the notice. It was everywhere, which is something we had suggested, and the A boards were very, very helpful in putting it on every single parking meter. So, not somebody from out of town, they said, I didn't know we were going to say, well, we could have put one on your forehead, but we didn't, but they were everywhere. So I did get lots, especially from business owners.
Yep.
They were just very happy.
Good to hear.
All right.
That's all that I have.
I think we're good with moving forward as planned.
I'll park on the hill tomorrow.
Okay, y'all, tomorrow's the day, so put your money in Anita.
You can blame us and not Commissioner McGriff. All right, commissioners?
Thank you for that.
Anything? Communications? No.
I move we adjourn.
All right.
Second.
Well, I have a chance at communications before we adjourn.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for the help, everybody, but I don't have any communications either, so we are going to adjourn. We're adjourned. What?
By the way, I didn't see the gap.